Hi, guys. Welcome to the Church Split. My name is Will, and today we have some things to talk about, don't we? Man, it's like one of those things where whenever I have a really busy week is when crazy stuff happens in the church world. And I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. So, anyway, hope y'all are doing well. Hope you all are enjoying the new mic and how you can actually hear my voice. And I know it's not a Wednesday live stream, it's a Tuesday live stream. But again, today I just happen to have time to be able to do this real fast. I will not have time tomorrow. Jonathan Pritchett is actually teaching our student class, and him and I are planning on hanging out afterwards. And then I'm gone for the weekend because I got to go to my home state and go buy a new vehicle. And so, when was I going to be able to address this? The answer is right now. I can only do this right now. So we're going to do it right now. All right. Basically, I had to throw the thumbnail together, watch the video and clip, and be like, "All right, we're going." So anyway, today we're going to talk about this whole thing with Andy Stanley at his church. I think North Point is what it's called. I always forget. I'm really bad at knowing the mega church pastors' names, by the way. Like, I just know them as their name and then whatever, building them in their little like cult meet. So kidding. By the way, just so everyone knows, I always joke around that I run a cult, so I can already tell people are going to get mad. But anyhow, so let's see if anything's going on in the live chat. Yeah, okay. Psycho Bible says anyone paying attention is not surprised by this after his conference in 2023. I did a thorough expose on him. Yeah, yeah. If you've been paying attention to the whole thing with Andy Stanley, you've been kind of surprised. Well, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about my background with Andy Stanley a little bit. I know family members who read a lot of his books and like enjoyed them a lot and recommended them. And whenever it's a mega church pastor, I'm not going to lie, I instantly am cynical. It doesn't matter if it's John MacArthur. It doesn't matter if it's John Piper. It doesn't matter if it's Andy Stanley or any of them. Any mega church pastor publishes a book, and I'm instantly like, And I don't know why that is. Actually, we all know why that is, because oftentimes we end up being thoroughly disappointed. But this is one of those weird situations because we watched this slowly unraveling, but this is a leaked video, an exclusively leaked video that came out that is going around, that was apparently it's being used to train people at North Point on their youth program, how their youth groups are supposed to be deal with LGBTQ issues. So this is their training on how they are equipping their people on how to deal with the LGBTQ question and issues, which is actually quite problematic, as you will see as we go forward. Now, I want to say a few things about the Andy Stanley thing. When he said the unhitched from the Old Testament thing, I watched if everyone at this point knows what he said there. He wants to move forward with unhitched basically from the Old Testament. And a lot of people kind of ran with that. And I listened to his clarification, and I kind of listened to what he said in context. And I was like, I don't think he's saying what a lot of people are saying he's saying. And there's been other times where he said something to the effect of like, appealing to the Bible is not enough anymore. People don't even trust the Bible or know the Bible. And he got a lot of flack for it. And I actually defended him there because I was like, no, he's right. Because now in our culture, we no longer assume the Bible is true. So we kind of have to build our way up to it. So apologetics is important. Arguments for God's existence, arguments for biblical reliability. And once you get people there, then yes, the Bible is the authority. But that we don't want to put the chariot before the horse. So I defended him there. But then I saw a while ago him talking about like them having different people in same-sex relationships on like their like guest services or something like that. And just like, how do they walk alongside them and with them? And I was very confused at that point, like, oh, yeah, okay, dude. So yeah, we've been kind of watching this go downhill, and I think it definitely has. Because I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt as much as I could, because some of the things that people were melting down over, I didn't think were worth melting down over. But this might be the thing that is worth it. But it's funny because I'll probably have some things to say about this as we go forward, because many of you guys might know I actually am a youth pastor. I work with young people all the time, and we discuss sexuality issues and gender issues often because it is very prevalent within Generation Z right now. And so I deal with this a lot, and I have both spectrums. I have the group that's like, the recent converts and people who are exploring. And we had one person that was like asking for prayer because after coming to our church was like, hey, you know what? This is my first time I'm going back to school, but as a straight white Christian gal, as opposed to trans. And so we've done this. Okay, we've done the trans stuff, we've done the gender identity stuff, and that's not just the only one. There's been multiple people I could talk about. Then I have the other side from all the kids who are like the super like, nope, this all sucks. We hate all of it, and like I don't even want to talk to people that are LGBTQ. So I have that. I navigate that. in my youth group continually here at the church. And that is something, so you can say I'm actually pretty decent at this, since I actually have both groups present continually and working with both of them, and trying to get one to have a bit more compassion for the other, and then having the other one realizing like what we would call reality is. And as Peter Fox says right here, Peter Fox, good to see you. Love you. I always love your feedback on the channel. By the way, Peter Fox sometimes doesn't even agree with me. And that's when him and I love that, because it just shows the fact I love not having yes men, but he also sometimes agrees with me, which makes me just feel good. But anyway, Peter Fox says, because the Bible says so is not a good apologetic when dealing with non-believers. Bingo, exactly. So it's good to see everybody. Amber, looking forward to seeing you soon when you visit. Double-edged sword of working from home. I guess it's time to take my lunch. Well, welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and pull the video up. Enough talking about it. Let's go and talk about it by actually responding to it. I did speed it up to 1.2 just so everyone's aware, and that's mainly because time constraints. And yeah, anyway, so it took me a while to find this. Shout out to Josh Klein with Free Thinking Ministries. He did a response with another gentleman about this video that's been going around, and I could not find the clip. I found like a 6-minute clip on Twitter, and I couldn't find the full thing. I could tell it's part of a larger video, and I kept finding like large response videos to it, but I could not find just the original video. So Josh Klein, thank you for sending me this. Really appreciate it. It's about 20-minute clip, and we're going to let parts play, and then I'll respond as we go, as I've done in the past. But I want you guys to listen to some of this, because actually, here's the thing, is I'm going to disagree harshly, but I'm also going to agree in certain parts, and I will tell you why that is as we go, okay? Alrighty, let's roll.
Hey leaders, it's Britt, and I'm the multi-campus director of transit. Today, we want to talk for a few minutes about how to best care for all of your students, including students who would identify as LGBTQ+. Now, a while ago, Andy did this great training for all of our student ministry volunteers. And in that, he gave us a phrase that's been echoing ever since. I hope it's not the first time you've heard it. He simply said that our student ministry should be the safest place to talk about anything. And when we apply this phrase to any number of subjects, depression, anxiety, cutting, anything that comes up, we feel like students really should have a safe place to talk about the tough things going on in their lives. And I can't think of a better place to talk about that than an environment with you, their trusted adults. Which, honestly, is not the experience I had in middle school. Because when I was a student, the last place I felt like I could talk openly about sensitive topics, especially sex, was at church. But we kind of made this our target, and we've been driving our small groups towards that target ever since. We started asking ourselves, what would it take to have our environment be that sort of place where students could open up and talk comfortably about anything within their small groups, including relationships and sexual integrity? When a student has a question, where should they go? We believe a small group is the best possible place to do that. And that's why you're so important. You create the safe place for students to ask their tough questions and talk about the important things. So my goal is simple. Set you up to continue to create a safe place for your group to talk about anything, including sexual integrity. And because this subject comes up every year in our environment, and when we talk about them, you're going to hear 3 guidelines show up again and again. You're going to hear 3 bottom lines. We'll probably phrase them differently year to year and craft the messages a little bit differently, but really, there's just 3 big ideas under the umbrella of sexual integrity we want to communicate consistently. Number 1, honor God with your body. These are all coming from the New Testament teachings of Jesus and out of the epistles. And it's the idea that you need to honor God with your body. The way you treat yourself, you need to honor the fact that you're created by God. That as Christians, we have the Holy Spirit living inside of us. So therefore, I need to honor God in that way. And I need to demand from people, to expect from people that they are going to honor me as well.
Okay, so far, so good. I actually have really no issues dealing with this. I do think that that one of the things I don't want to hear people that say is like, I think the best place for this is your small groups. I mean, I could get nitpicky there. I'm like, no, the best place for people to talk about their issues is with church people, not just trusted adults. He says there's a lot of like refrain from church language here, and I'm assuming it's just to be, I don't know, more in vogue or something. But no, the place they are correct. Your students need to be able to come to you and talk to you in a place that is safe for them to talk about their issues. If it's not safe for them to talk about their issues, they're afraid of ridicule, or they're afraid that you're going to come smashing down on them with a hammer. They're not going to open up with you about their problems and the things that are ailing them. And like him, growing up, I did not experience that in church, and I think that's a major issue. And I think that's why I had to work through some stuff. And it was harder for me to work through some stuff because I had no one walking alongside me with stuff, because I didn't dare talk about not just sex, but literally anything with anyone at church, because I knew exactly what would happen if I did. So That is not necessarily a bad thing. And actually, Peter Fox says it right here. Plenty of adult church groups are not safe places to talk about that stuff either. Exactly. So it's an overall church culture problem. So right here, I agree. I'm like, yes, dead on. That is absolutely fantastic. And we need to cultivate that more, where a kid can come to you and talk to you about their issues without you having to instantly make a bigger deal about it than what it is. You need to be a person that the first person they want to talk to when things go wrong. And I've had that. And, I've had some hard conversations with students, man, like just sitting there listening and nodding my head, making sure that they know I'm listening before I even respond, because that is a huge thing where it's like, hey, can I talk to you? I'm like, yeah. And then like, okay, look, I have a lot going on. I'm like, it's okay. I'll just sit down, shut up. And you just talk to me, and know it's a no judgment zone. And I tell them that it's a no judgment zone. And usually I'll even end up telling them, hey, when I was a teenager, I did blah, 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 blah. Hey, I've done X, Y, Z before. And I will sometimes lead in that vulnerability when I can tell that they're even struggling to talk about things. And I'm like, hey, look, it's a no judgment zone. Just so we're clear, you're going to get some dirt on me. Let me tell you about it. Like, and it kind of creates a safe place for them to be like, oh, well, I mean, shoot, if he's going to tell me stuff, I could tell them stuff. And that's really important. So I do like this idea of safe place. I also really like this idea of honoring God with your body. I've been doing the Theology of the Body series on this channel. I have 3 parts up right now. There's a playlist. Go check it out. Then I have other videos in there toward the end, but those first 3 videos especially. And theology of the body is really important. Yeah, honor God with your body. Your body is not just a thing separate from your soul. It is actually the vehicle by which we engage this world, and it's the body by which the Spirit indwells. It's the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. If we take participatory theology, it means that we participate in Christ by being one with his body. And that means that we are his hands and feet here on earth. So honor God with your body. Do things that are honorable for your body. Don't abuse your body. That means not just cutting, as he mentions here, but in sexuality and other cases as well. So right here, so far, so good. I am actually really, really into what he's saying so far. I actually do not fully disagree with this, but don't worry, there will be criticisms as we go. But so far, so good.
And so when it comes to dating, are they honoring you? And are you honoring yourself? Are you honoring God with your body? The second one is, don't be mastered by anything. Now, this bottom line could mean any number of things, but we're going to use this, especially in the idea of sexual integrity, to talk about pornography with our students. We will have students discuss the idea that nothing should have control of their lives. When we talk through this, pornography is likely to come up, and we hope it does. It's something students need to talk about, especially 6th grade groups. We're going to use this bottom line to bring up in small group the idea of what they look at affects them. The reality is that students, even 6th graders, are dealing with this topic. We need them to start wrestling with the idea that nothing should have control of your life. The third teaching we teach.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about here is this is good as well. So when he talks about like dating and stuff, this is one of the things I've had conversations many times with young people who, they're dating, they're hormonal, they're all excited and attracted to each other, and then they start fooling around in ways they shouldn't. And I've had plenty of those conversations with kids, learning boundaries and learning all that. And like one of the things I talk about is, hey, do you know if you're going to marry this person, like especially young men? I'm like, because I tend to talk, obviously when it comes to sexual issues, I talk to the boys. I let my women leaders deal with the girls issues. I get and men, we're pretty simple creatures in this department, so I just normally talking about like Peter Fox goes, no dating until you're married. That's hilarious. So one of the things but I'll tell them like, hey, so I get it, you're attracted, I always frame it, and it's normal to be attracted. It's normal to have sexual urges. Those are not inherently bad, but it's what we do with those things that can be bad or worse, right? So one of the things I will talk to them about is, hey, so you're over here. I know you're struggling with this, and you told me all this stuff that you've been doing, and here's why you need to not do those things. And if they just started dating, I'll try to talk to them before they actually are like end up further in the relationship about this. I'm like, you need to protect her from yourself and from herself. You as the man, one of the reasons why God created men and the reason why we are like, physically stronger and everything, with that physical strength comes the responsibility of protection. And that means more than just protecting from external threats, but also protecting from protecting her own dignity and making sure that she's not feeling objectified or pressured. And also the fact that she's not going to be pressured into something when she's not your wife, and that you're also not going to accept the things from her unless she's your wife. You protect her from your own from your own desires, and because you put her in a place of vulnerability if you engage in sexual activity, because who's the ones who are usually single parents? Women, right? Because they're the ones who get pregnant and they're the ones who bear the child. So all this comes with the property, essentially, of if you're the man in this relationship, you need to be careful. And then on top of that, we talk about honoring God with the body and making sure you have those things, because we don't like it when our like our children or our siblings, or maybe your parents were divorced, whatever. And a lot of people don't like the idea of someone in their life being used for sexual gratification and nothing else. And a lot of people don't like that. I'm like, okay, well then why would you do that to them? And then I also usually ask, do you want baggage? Like, do you want somebody to have like a large body count, as we say nowadays? Like, no, I really don't want that. I'm like, okay, great. That's a good thing. Then don't be someone else's baggage. If you don't know if you're going to marry them, do not become their baggage. You don't want to be the one where, in a conversation with somebody, you're like, hey, I do have to tell you about my ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, and that you don't want to be baggage. So be honorable, honor with your body, honor with your heart, honor with your integrity. And of course, through that, you're honoring the Lord and all that. So honor God by not trying to make someone your husband or wife who's not your husband or wife. So we talk about that. I also think this is all good stuff. So anyway, so yeah, exactly. I also don't contribute to other people's body counts. Exactly. So and that's exactly what I was just saying right there. Like, hey, there is some actual practical things here. Let's see. Actually, Peter Fox says the practical and psychological issues of extramarital relations is one thing that was and is missing from purity culture. Exactly. And he talks about purity culture in this video, and I actually appreciate some of the things that he says about it, because actually purity culture is majorly detrimental. It's got some serious problems, and that is one of the things. It's like there's actually a real practical side to this. I've talked about psychology and how it's wired. I'll talk to them about that, like how you're wired for intimacy, but you're wired for intimacy with one person. And so fooling around, even though you might want to, this is why I'm also a strong advocate of young marriages. Like I'm over here, like, we look at the most successful marriages that we've seen in the West, and they're all people who got married at young ages. And the data shows that if they saved themselves from marriage, they got married, like as high school sweethearts or something, they do really well, which is the opposite advice that what the culture tells us to do. And I'm pretty much at the point when the culture says we're supposed to do something, I'm like, nope, we're supposed to do the opposite. So, yeah, anyway. Oh, hey, blessed Goku. I don't avoid them. I just don't always see them. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and get distracted on the stream with you much more than this, but here's the thing. Let me go ahead and level with you, because you said this before in a comment section. I use my YouTube Studios app, which only tells me the most recent ones, and I don't tend to dig through hundreds of comments every single day, because between all my other social platforms and my YouTube, comments, I don't have a time to respond to everybody. And then sometimes atheists will leave me 17 paragraphs, all needing their own 17 paragraphs. And I ain't got time for that if I do see them. Honestly, I haven't seen your question that you were referring to. Even after you asked it, I quickly scrolled through and I was like, I don't see it. And I moved on. But then you called me a liar. So that doesn't really pose well for a decent discourse. Not a liar, just got a lot going on. I'm a dad, I'm a student, I have a full-time job and then some, and yeah, I'm a dad. So sorry that you, as a blessed Goku, aren't my top priority to deal with when you clearly are only here for a fight. So you want to fight? Go fight somewhere else. But if you actually want an honest discourse and you actually want to make sure you have like a singular thing you want to talk about, and you're not trying to rabbit trail of 17 issues, you can send the church split an email. Otherwise, in comment sections, things get lost all the time between Twitter, Facebook, and everything else. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't avoid them, because generally speaking, I have yet to hear a very strong, solid case against Christianity and biblical stuff. People try to bring up Exodus stuff and all that stuff, and no. I'm just not impressed by it. So anyway, that's that. Continuing on.
Which is, don't sexualize a relationship outside of marriage. We simply don't think it's wise. Based on the teachings of Jesus, we don't think it's wise to make any relationship sexual in nature until you are married, that no relationship should cross that boundary for your own physical, mental, and spiritual health. And so these are going to be the 3 big ideas that we talk about every year. Honor God with your body, don't be mastered by anything, and don't sexualize a relationship outside of marriage.
I forgot to mention in the don't be mastered by anything. So yeah, the don't sexualize things outside of marriage. That's also really important, and which is exactly what I was talking about. That's what the monogamy is actually what we're wired for, and that's very, very, very clear. So I'm again, don't hate that part. The not being brought under the power of, but the one thing he did say is like we don't think it's wise based on the teachings of Jesus. That's kind of softening the language. It's not just unwise, it is unrighteous, it is sinful, it is because you're objectifying someone sexually who is not your spouse, and the only person that deserves to be with you sexually and intimately is your spouse. So this is actually again it's a violation of God's law. So I think he's softening the language here more than I'm comfortable with. And when he talks about not being brought under the power of anything, like that's true, that's a biblical principle. And did you notice how he says he's talking to sixth graders about this? And now I know church people who will be like, that is way too young to be talking to these kids. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not anymore. Look at when people are exposed to pornography. Look at when kids start looking up that stuff. Look, and if you were around these kids, and you heard the words that they were saying, even in fourth and fifth grade, you would not say that. But the thing is that the world has no problem teaching young people and young kids their sexual ethic. They have no problem teaching it. And the church has largely remained silent and has pretty much been like, oh no, we don't talk about sex. That's the no word. Shh, be quiet. We don't talk about it. We pretend it's not a thing. Well, that has only led to more and more and more and more and more destruction. So we should not do that. So yeah. Again, all this, I agree. It's actually where the beginning I noticed I agreed with, and it was actually after this is when I was like, okay, hold on, slow your roll there, buddy.
And then the next debate is, well, how do you help a student create a goal in this area? How do you help a student create a boundary or guardrails for their lives in this area? And if you're from my generation, it was always, all right, we're going to do this big ceremony. You're going to make a promise. You're going to stay pure until marriage. And while that was all done with good intentions, we've learned that it's not always helpful for students, especially middle school students. Because the idea of marriage is way out there in the future, and we don't even know if marriage is going to be part of God's plan for their lives. So knowing this subject comes up every single year, we've decided we're just going to start challenging students. Hey, when it comes to the area of sexual integrity, when it comes to these guidelines, can you live with integrity on these 3 guidelines just for the next year? Because we know we're going to talk about the subject next year. The same time of year is going to come back up. So can you live with integrity just for the next year? What guidelines can you put in place in your life just for the next year? And that seems to be a much more helpful goal for our students. You have the ability to—
Yeah, this is where I disagree. You're setting a 1-year goal. It shouldn't be a 1-year goal. This should be no. We're asking you to make a lifestyle decision, a righteousness decision, a participation in the body of Christ decision, that you will align yourself with him and you will be conformed to the image of Christ, not the image of yourself. So this is where I disagree. Like right when I heard that, I was like, well, that's not practical information. Like to tell a kid, like, hey man, you know what, just stay a virgin for a year. Just do it for a year, man. Like, what? No. Commit to this path. This is a lifestyle, because it's not about 1 year. Because once you're married, I love this whole idea that like once you're married, like you don't struggle or you'll never lust again, right? Because you have sex. Like, no, like people are still going to lust. So no matter what, you are going to pornography. I know many people got married and they're still struggling with pornography. It's like, no. It's a lifestyle decision. You're making a lifestyle choice for your own health and the betterment of your future family and your future spouse. So, there's that. Oh, Anthony, thank you so much for the $10 super chat with not even a word in there, just $10. Thanks, dude. Appreciate you. I guess Anthony, I must have said something that you liked, I guess, or you just believe in the mission of the channel, or you accidentally hit the pay button. But thank you for that. I pledge to be pure until my next encounter. I said no today, but I might not say no tomorrow. That's kind of, yeah, exactly. I thought third graders and that age were already asking, and even you hear about sexual abuse in the home. Exactly. As someone who's in and around the foster system, let me tell you something, that there's young kids out there that you'd be surprised at how young have struggled and fought through things. Anyway, there's a lot to that, which is why it's like, well, it's better that the church actually speaks about sexual immorality pretty openly. Anyway.
Say, hey, for next year, I'm your small group leader. I'm going to be with you this entire journey of middle school. How can I help you live with integrity? If we navigate this topic well and create a safe place for students to talk about dating, relationships, and sex, then we know that some things are going to be brought up in group that you're going to have to wade into. So, for the remainder of our time, we want to talk about the idea of how to care for LGBTQ plus students. And that brings a whole nother level of complexity about leading through those conversations and a whole nother level of complexity of dealing with the parents. We want to share with you some of the things that we've learned over time. Once again, if our goal is that our student ministry should be the safest place to talk about anything, we have to ask, are we really okay with the idea that every student is welcome at our church? Are we really sure that you want every student feeling comfortable coming to our church? And we've decided here at this church that yes, we are comfortable with that. And we do want to be the safest place for every student to talk about anything. And because of that, we had to start asking, how do you care for these students? Caring for students who experience same-sex attraction and what identify as LGBTQ involves intentionality. We can't just happen into this and get it right. We really got to make sure we are studying and preparing ourselves for these conversations because they are going to happen. The first thing we have to do is make sure we're using the right language. And we never, ever, ever want to label a student. Students often hear label out there in the world and put it on themselves. And they may do that in your small group, but it's very important that you don't ever put that label on them. If you're from my generation, you know we used to use the term gay all the time. I mean, everything was gay. The movie's gay, your shirt is gay, everything was gay. And then that word really kind of lost all meaning. And so for students today, they may say gay or they may say lesbian, but they really don't know what it means. Especially middle schoolers, we want to really slow down and see if they understand each of those terms.
Okay, no, they understand the terms. In my experience with working with young people, they definitely understand the terms. And by the way, I bring back the early 2000s when you could say everything was gay because that was funny. That's actually one of the funniest things actually about being like a millennial who works with Gen Z, because a lot of sensitivity training and stuff has come and become part of the culture with that young generation. And I'm one of the middle millennials, older/middle, and like I was born in 91. And one of the funniest things about it is the fact that, like, man, I was in the like Halo lobbies with a headset on, and back before they monitored the stuff people said. And let me just tell you something, like a lot of people couldn't handle that stuff. But anyway, so again, I don't have a problem with making sure that everyone's welcome. I am not, that's fine. I think, especially when it comes to LGBTQ issues, we just have to know how we're going to navigate that as a whole. We have to know the fact that we're going to have to talk to students about it. This is going to be a thing. So you need to talk about it. Gone are the days of just like, oh, well, we'll have them talk to the parents about it. Like pretty much that's gone now. It's part of the cultural milieu. All the kids talk about LGBTQ issues, either being part of it, experiencing same-sex attraction, dysphoria, or absolutely hating it. Either way, it's all talked about all the time. So that it is just part of it. So once in a while I'll hear, because I've been dealing with that issue most this year. I've literally committed this entire year to basically theology of the body with the students. And what I've run into is sometimes people go, I don't know why we're talking or spending so much time on this, is like because of this, because of how often it is talked about. So yeah, but yeah, they know what it is. And he explains here in a minute why he thinks like that they don't, because he thinks that like saying you're gay has a far more like permanent connotation to it than saying same-sex attraction. But I just think you're making distinctions without a difference. If you experience same-sex attraction, you're experiencing gay attraction. There's a gay aspect to that, and I don't think even LGBTQ people would shy away from that. Now, it doesn't hurt to be clear with your terms. I understand that, but anyway, right.
Term that we find helpful around here is saying that you're dealing with same-sex attraction. Because if you say you're gay, it might mean that you're married to someone of the same sex. It may mean that you're dating. But for middle school students, it could just be right now you're experiencing same-sex attraction. That term has become helpful for us as a team, as a staff, as we walk alongside families for the past few years. Because the gay label becomes much more permanent. So we want to make sure we're not labeling students, but helping them find the right language to describe how they are feeling or what they're dealing with. But with that, we've got to make sure in our small group rooms, with our small groups, that we're creating an environment where students feel comfortable talking about those issues. Like I said, my generation, who didn't get this right, in my generation, all things were gay and you're gay and people are gay and he's not manly enough. If language like that is coming up in your small group repeatedly, well, you've got to know. There's a good chance there's a student in your group who's listening to those conversations, trying to figure out, is this going to be a safe place for me to talk about my experiences one day?
No, that's actually true. Again, I don't hate this part where it's like, hey, and I've gotten on my own students about that. Like, you can't be talking like that. You don't know what people are struggling with. And the way you are saying that is going to come off like they can't talk about it, or they have no one to go to, that they're already rejected before they walk through the door. So yeah, exactly. I agree with him on this point. Bingo. Neville, why not use biblical language like sodomite instead of LGBTQ? Now, this is actually a fair question. The Bible doesn't, like, when it comes to this particular issue, if we say that, that is now automatically inflammatory now because of how it's been abused. Instead of just like saying it like generically, like we say homosexuality or something, it was a thing where people would scream it and yell it, and so it's people have misused a lot of the stuff biblically as well. The church has not necessarily handled this particular topic well. So I think that's why a lot of people like myself even avoid using the phrase, because it's like, well, as soon as I say sodomy or sodomite, well, you can say sodomy now. People are okay with that, because they tend to know what that is. Then that's the act of. But I've noticed if you call people sodomites, that doesn't tend to go well for a good conversation. So you might want to use that as your, like, walk away pot shot comment, but that's the main reason. All right. Anyway,
Is this going to be a safe place one day to talk about what I'm feeling or who I'm attracted to? And so, as small group leaders, as leaders of our church, really is our responsibility to make sure that we've got safe language being used in our small group rooms. This will make sure trust is being built so every student feels comfortable sharing. In fact, we challenge our communicators on stage to do the same thing, to use language and even how we talk about dating and relationships to include everyone, to build bridges and not create unnecessary gaps. We have to recognize, though, that this group of students, this next generation, sees sexuality differently than the way most of us did growing up. For this generation, it's the idea that sexuality is fluid. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to be gay or identify as LGBTQ, but it does mean that they might, for a while in middle school or early high school, feel attracted to someone of the same gender. But that doesn't lock them in for a lifetime of feeling that way. They might one day decide it's not true about me. And that's a big paradigm shift for me and people of my generation to realize, oh, wait, you might change your mind one day? And here's the best part about this. This generation doesn't think that's a big deal. It's important for everyone to understand that their sexuality is coming online as middle schoolers. They're developing that sense of who they are, and we've got to respect the process and help them through that process as they realize who they are.
now this is where I'm like, wait, what? This is definitely where I start going, no, 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 no. Because just because this generation thinks sexuality is fluid doesn't suddenly mean that you adopt those things. It's like, no, sexuality, and what by sexuality being fluid, it means simply like, yeah, your attractions can be different and they can change. Yeah, but you don't adopt that as like your general worldview. Like, and I will tell people, like, sometimes your attractions change over time. That is true. But are your attractions good attractions? Just because you're attracted doesn't mean you should be attracted. And that means that you could acknowledge, I am attracted to that, but I shouldn't be. Pornography is attractive to a lot of people. It could be same-sex attraction. It could be whatever. There could be a lot of things that you're attracted to. Doesn't mean that you should acknowledge it. And that's like, oh, this generation is a good thing that they see it as fluid, that they might change their mind one day. Actually, I know a lot of people within the LGBTQ community that would actually be like, did he just say change your mind? It's not a choice. You can't change your mind. But it is shown that a lot of people do grow out of those things, because when there's like, especially we see an uptick like in bisexuality amongst young women. You look at the studies, there's an uptick amongst young women, and then by the time they're 17, 18, they are no longer attracted to that way. And I think that's something to do sometimes with the hormones. When the hormones are all like being pumped in the system and you're growing and developing, you might find yourself attracted. But then on top of that, I think there's a social contagion with that as well. And I think that the young ladies are more susceptible to the social pressure, because women are more communal psychologically, to the LGBTQ stuff as well. I think there's a social contagion aspect to it. And I think the reason why you'll see like different diseases and stuff spread amongst young gay men, for example, is because basically we all know male sexuality is far more sexually aggressive, and due to that fact that you've removed a woman from the equation, then you run into that problem. But either way, I don't think you suddenly just start adopting this idea that, oh, sexuality is fluid, you change your mind one day, it's fine. No, it's like, no, you're going to experience attractions all throughout your life that you're not supposed to have. So you need to learn how to actually like deal with this. So yeah, you can change your sex, not your sexuality. Get it? Exactly. Andrew and Maddie says, my opinion is all people are welcome and encouraged to be at church, but if someone is in the LGBTQ community, joins a membership class, then they're signing up for accountability and will be called out. That's pretty much my whole thing where I'm like, look, you could attend, but as soon as you start like wanting to be involved, well, now there is this whole thing of you're going to be brought under the church authority. So that's going to be a very different thing.
And all of a sudden we realize, okay, that's what the studies mean when they say sexuality is fluid, that they're okay with the idea that I might feel one way for a while and eventually change my mind. So not freaking out and making drastic decisions can actually benefit the student in the long run. Now, of course, there is a percentage of students that they're going to say that about themselves in middle school, and that's true about them and what they're going to be for the rest of their life's journey. But the challenge is you don't know which of those students that is, and the students don't know which of the students that is themselves. So we got to treat them all the same and walk alongside them in this process. So as we go to camp and have a relationship series, a student might come to you and you should feel honored. That means you're doing a good job as a leader and they trust you with the biggest secret they have, the most difficult thing they're dealing with, and they told you it's a big deal. Congratulations, you're leading them so well. But here's the thing, it's never our job to out them. So if this happens to you, if a student says they're dealing with same-sex attraction, especially in middle school, here are a couple of talking points that we can bring up. These are sort of the things we want to say to students in that moment when it happens. Hey, I think I'm dealing with same-sex attraction. Or maybe they're going to say something like, hey, I think I'm gay. We want to respond properly and say things like, I'm so glad you told me so I can walk alongside you on this journey. Another thing we can say that's helpful is, it took a lot of courage for you to open up about this. And that's true. It takes a ton of courage to tell another human being about who you're attracted to. And we need to applaud them for that. And finally, you can say something like, I don't think any less of you. The number one word associated with coming out for someone in the LGBTQ community is shame. And we want to try to minimize that feeling. We don't want any student to feel shame over that. Our job is not to sit there and try to correct them in this moment. In this moment where they feel comfortable coming out, we want to say, hey, I'm so glad you told me and I care about you no matter what. The goal is that everyone feels comfortable at church talking in their small group with a trusted adult.
Yeah, now this is again where I depart and disagree. You shouldn't feel shame. Like they feel shame. Why is it that a lot of people feel shame? Well, I would argue that it's part of the image bearingness of God. The fact that we know that when we are attracted to wrong things, it's shameful. It brings shame because sin is shame. And I talk about this like experiencing sexual sin or engaging in sexual sin brings shame. I talk about it in my Theology of the Body series. Again, check the playlist. You can go watch all that there. No, sexual sin brings shame. So you don't go, no, I don't want them to feel shame. No, it's okay for them to feel the shame. But it is the other things he said is good. Like, hey, I'm glad you're talking to me about this. It takes courage to do this. And it takes courage to confess your sin, and it takes courage to confess your temptations to anybody. That is a very true thing, and it can be very hard because there's not a lot of places people are safe to do that with. So if they have chosen you, that is an honor. And you do walk beside them kindly, and you're gracious to them, but you don't sit there and try to get them to avoid shame. You try to get them to go to Jesus Christ, where they experience the freedom and forgiveness from that sinful shame, and that they can be remade new. That's what you ought to do. You point them in that direction. And by the way, it does work, and I've seen it work with young people. So anyway, yeah. So what just made? Yeah, anyhow, so this whole thing, yeah, notice how they have nothing aspirational they present to students with same-sex attraction. Yeah, exactly. Like and it's like, no, you're just like, oh yeah, 1 year, but then here suddenly it becomes, oh, we're just going to play it nice and easy. They back off quite a bit on that. And so, and when this happens, this is where, as student leaders, because I saw your comment here, Neville. He says not telling parents gets you in predator territory. I don't know what that was a response to. Did he say don't tell tell the parents? Or whatever. I'm just gonna say, like, this is where, as a student leader, your job is to partner with students and parents. You need to be a confidant for that student, yes, where that student can talk to you, but you also need to be a proper liaison for the parents, that they are informed on really big things going on with their child. And that way you work with the family. You don't work instead of the family or in the way of the family. So the biggest problems we have nowadays, right? We tell people, that young ladies, they can get abortions without their parents' consent if they're a minor. We say the same thing when it comes to like sexuality and gender issues in the schools. Like, oh, well, they don't tell the parents. So no. You get the parents involved. You get the parents involved. They need to be involved. But you can coach the parents on how to respond and how to have a proper response to their kid. And I mean, I've even offered, and I sat down at a table with parents with and a student and had an uncomfortable conversation, and I was the liaison between the two. I've had to do those before, believe me. Those are very, very uncomfortable pastoral calls, but they are important ones because it shows, one, that we can do this as a church and as a group and as a family, and that it shows trust amongst people, and it's an important thing. So yes, it's, you do inform the parents, but I don't think he did he say that? I don't think he said that, but let me know if he did say that, because I don't think I heard it. But anyway.
Now, if you're someone from the LGBTQ plus community, or you're the parent of a student from that community, there's not a lot of churches out there that you can go to as a family and feel safe. If you're the parent of a heterosexual kids, well, there's lots of churches you can go to. And so we want to make sure we're the safest place for every student to come. Now, to be honest with you, this is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult, but I'm telling you, it's worth it.
One thing I'm also wondering about is when he's like, hey, if you're someone who's got a family with LGBTQ, a part of that community, you're going to have a hard time finding a church. Yes. And that's because you're saying they are a part of the community. In other words, and we're going to see that's what he means here in a minute, because you're saying now that they've accepted to be part of that community. So now it's a lifestyle choice. We're not talking about somebody who experiences these problems. We're talking about someone who's actually actively involved in the community and a part of that, as opposed to someone who is living repentantly. Yes, a church should not accept people who are living in should just willy-nilly be like, oh no, all your sin is fine. All your sin is fine. Oh, you're part of that community. We want you comfortable here. No, we want people to come to the church and be uncomfortable with their sin enough to change, but they should be coming to where they're uncomfortable with their sin, but feeling more comfortable in the righteousness and love of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. They should feel that within the community itself, that there's so much love poured out, but it's Christ-like love that reflects his order and his law and all those things. And then that trickles down to everybody else. We can't just make everyone feel comfortable. You can't make everybody feel comfortable if they're already accepted as part of this community. And no matter what community it is, if it is directly against God, we want you as a person comfortable here, where you're not feeling like we are trying to stab you when you walk in, but you shouldn't feel comfortable with your choices being around us for forever. It should be the opposite. You should realize that we do not accept that sort of thing. And that's where the people oftentimes miss this. In the first century culture, there was an honor shame thing. And that's why Paul says, don't share a meal with these people who do this, because it's shameful. They're part of the out group. We are the in group. And if somebody is coming from the out group trying to come into the in group, then they have to at some point repent and leave the out group to join the in group. You can't have your feet in both, so to speak. So anyway, hope that makes sense there. I don't know.
If we create a safe place, more students will share things with us that are difficult to navigate. So I want to talk through how we care for students who are experiencing gender dysphoria. Now, gender dysphoria, this is a weird term. We don't hear it a lot. Basically, this is the clinical term used for anyone who's unsure about their own gender. Dysphoria is the opposite of euphoria. Euphoria is like joy, happiness, contentment, excitement over a situation. Gender dysphoria is like they're not comfortable. They don't have joy over it. They're not sure where they land. So this is the umbrella term for several different terms that could be underneath gender dysphoria. The terms transgender or non-binary are some sample terms that an adult might use to describe who they are if they're trying to figure out their gender. Our goal in these situations is to best support the student and the family. Now, this is an extremely small part of the population. It's more likely they won't happen in your small group in middle school, but we want to make sure we're prepared and we've thought through how to best care for these students. Our goal is to first understand where a student is in their journey. Now, through the years, we've gotten to know several families. There's one family in particular that's very helpful for me. Their journey first started when their student was 5 years old. So it was before any of the middle school hormones of what's going on could even take place. And these parents handled it so well and took every step so slowly. This family first started going to a child psychologist and seeing a medical specialist. Then over time, they started using different pronouns at home, but only at home. They were not using these pronouns in school. They weren't even asking extended family to use those pronouns yet. They weren't asking friends to do it yet. Then a big step was to pick a new name from the other gender so they could start using that. But once again, only the new name around the home. And they could start wearing different clothing, first just one day a week, once again, only at the home. The next big step was going to the extended family, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, and say, hey, will you start using this name and these pronouns for our child? Now, somewhere along the way, medical intervention started for this student. If we're talking about something in middle school, more than likely medical injections are going to be about stopping puberty as opposed to having a surgery. That will probably come later in life. It would be just a matter of, hey, let's slow down or stop puberty from even starting for this child. Now, at this point, the next big thing that's going to happen is them starting to ask the public to start using a different set of pronouns and a different name. They finally go to the school system and ask them to start using those different pronouns. And what eventually happened was the school system, the family, the extended family, were all using different name and pronouns for this child, but their local church would not do it. Their local church said, nah, because we've known him since he was a little boy, we're not going to start saying her. So not here, not at our church. We've known you too long to be able to do that. And so everywhere this child went in life, they were saying you were one thing, but only at church, they had to pretend to be something else. And they had to leave that church. And they finally came here, started talking to our care ministry staff, and we realized, oh my goodness, we cannot be the last place a student feels comfortable. That's the opposite of our goal for church, is to be the last place you feel comfortable talking about anything. But we've got to understand, it's a really, really long journey for these families. I mean, it's years and years and years and years and years to make this change. In fact, it's very difficult surgeries to go through later in life. In fact, there's upper surgeries and bottom surgeries, and many people can go through the upper surgery, but the bottom surgeries are extremely invasive and sometimes don't even work. And so it may not even happen or be a possibility for every person who wants to make this change. So knowing how long this journey really is, it's important that we as staff and as small group leaders care for these students, knowing this is not going to be a flip of the switch and be taken care of next week. This isn't going to be something that is turned around in just a few days. This is going to be a 5 or 6 year process for the student if they stick with it. And the best part is that's exactly what our strategy is already made to do.
Shut up. Now this is where it gets bad. This right here is absolutely mind-bogglingly disgusting. So, this family are really helpful for me. This kid, 5 years old. 5 years old, and we started just using a different pronoun at home. Then they could wear the opposite clothes once a week, and then this, and then that, and then eventually the family, and then eventually this, and then we'll talk about, and once we put them on hormone puberty blockers, then we make the rest of we'll ask the world to cater to this. What? 5 years old? That's called Child Protective Services. That's what you need to be doing. Not sitting there and catering to this. This is ridiculous. Now this is and this. Oh, I got feelings on this. This is the problem with what we see happen in our culture all the time. You see the first half of that video, you're like, that's actually not that bad. Maybe you'd quibble about some things like I did, but it's really not that bad. And hey, we want it to be a safe place for people to talk to. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we want people to not feel shame. Well, we want them to feel some shame, right? Because we want to repent. But I get what you're trying to do. Right. So yeah, we're trying to walk alongside families and be patient with them. So therefore, accept their pronouns and everything else and all that, because we don't want them to accept shame, and we also want them to feel safe. So boom, done. It's weaponizing Christian empathy in order to try to get us to reject not only our convictions, but reality itself. And I am not okay with that. And we shouldn't be okay with that. Why would we? Why would we be okay with that? This right here is child abuse. It's child abuse. And the fact is, well, we can't let we can't let the church be the last place the child feels comfortable. It's not about the child feeling comfortable now. Now, at this point, is whether or not you are going to cater to a lie. You're asking the church to walk alongside and continue to lie. And why is this family showing up to church? If they've already are transitioning their child, who is as young as 5 years old, children barely even know what food they like. I have a 4-year-old right now, and she's like, I don't like this. I'm like, hey, buddy, do you want a French fry? She goes, no, I want to eat healthy. I'm like, oh, you want to eat healthy? What do you want? A cookie. What you're saying is that you want to eat something that you want to eat. Like my 4-year-old doesn't know. A 5-year-old wouldn't know if she's a boy or a girl. Like she knows she's a girl. My 4-year-old knows she's a girl. So where is that ideology even coming from? A 5-year-old doesn't know. And certainly a 5-year-old doesn't need to be like catered to if the child's confused at all. They definitely don't need the confusion to come alongside it. That's what's going to make it worse, which is clearly, by the sounds of the way this man talked, did make it worse. It's gross. It's disgusting, and no church should cater to it. No church should just sit there and be like, "Okay, yep, I'm totally fine with all those things." I've worked with trans people as well before, and what I do, just to avoid any like the HR problems, is I just refuse to use pronouns. I always refer to them as a first name, like Alex. Alex. Alex is over there. Oh, you want to see Alex? Oh, hey, did you see what Alex brought in today? Like, always, if you're trying to avoid it, just avoid it that way. But no, the church is not expected to, nor should they have to cater to that sort of thing. You're going to a church. And if you're going to the church and you have this whole thing with your family, the question then comes for me is, are you here because you want the Christian worldview in your home? And if that's so, cool, we'll walk with you through that. Or are you here because you want the benefits of church and the community of church while also living a life that's denying the image of God in you? That's the next question. Or now you're at the point where you're like, oh my gosh, we made a mess of our teenager. Because the other thing is like puberty blockers are devastating. Like we know this. Like it's not good. Puberty doesn't just continue on afterwards. They've actually talked about this, where the bottom surgeries, by the way, saying really invasive is an understatement. They can kill people. They can cause things down there to never work properly again because you're not made that way. That's not what you are. If you want to be a woman, you're not a woman. If you want to be a man, you're not a man. Like that's not how this works. You don't get to just change that. So you don't cater to that. The church shouldn't cater to, because we believe not only the image bearing of God and that you are an image bearer as male or female, but also that he just talked about honoring God with your body. Well, you don't honor God with your body by butchering it and by putting bad things in it. Because guess what? They've even done this before, where they put puberty blockers on a young boy. And then when he got old enough and became an adult, he wanted a bottom surgery. But for those who don't know about the bottom surgeries, you can look it up and gag, but they have to cut up the male parts to create a woman part. And because he didn't go through puberty properly, they didn't have enough material to work with. So it's even devastating for their own people. So's Google's millstone nearby. Google's millstone for sale near me. Good job. And so yeah, yeah. So this right here, that it is, it's just not okay. It's just not okay. It's not good. And you're asking Christians to not only lie and therefore turn our backs on what God created us to say and do, but you're also encouraging people to deny the image of God that they're made in. You're asking people to actually not honor God with their body. And by the way, don't get me wrong, if somebody has actually gone through all this and now they're repentant, they're seeking the Lord and all that stuff, and they're really curious, but let's say they've gone through the full bodily transition, then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of difficult conversations happening there. And okay, well, how do you detransition? How do we get you back? But now, if you're a man and you went through the bottom surgery, but now you're a repentant Christian, well, now you need to be a man, but now you're just going to be a eunuch for the kingdom of God. That's where you're at. You have eunuchize yourself. Okay. Like that's just where you're at. And that's part of it. Like, yeah, it sucks, but these are permanent life decisions. Which is why we shouldn't even allow doctors to do these surgeries, because it violates the oath. I almost said the hypostatic union. Man, well, but it violates the whole "I will do no harm," and this does harm. It's permanent body changes, and we're having our kids buy into it. Our churches are buying into it now. Both political parties more and more seem to be okay with it. Like it seems like people are okay with trans people so long as they're on their side. Like the right has Blair White, and no one ever is like, "Oh yeah, Blair White, yeah, he." No, Blair's a dude, and we need to stop catering to that. So anyway, whatever. You get my point. This is not good, it's sinful, and it's bad, and we do not cater to it as a church.
To track along for multiple years with the students, so this is nothing new for any of you. Here's something to remember. 75%, which is a huge number, 75% of people do not make a full transition. It's very rare. In fact, as we are caring for the student, a lot of the ministry will be to the parents. Many times, we're helping the parents understand the student's journey as well. Many times, the parents don't know what to do. And if you're nervous about what it looks like for a student who's considering this change or somewhere on this journey of change, if you think you're nervous, the parents are 10 times as nervous. They are much more nervous than you are. It was a big deal for them to walk into a church with their child and hope someone was going to love them, hoping someone was going to care for them. In fact, just the other day, a student that we walked.
Hold up. They can walk in and feel loved and all those things without you catering to all those things. They can do it. I do that here. I have students that go through that stuff right here, and they know I love them. They know I got their back, but I don't cater to it. And they know I don't. In fact, when I teach my lessons, I've been teaching theology of the body. They've been hearing about it. They've been hearing about the Christian worldview on it. Now, I don't deliver it in a fire, hell, and brimstone, everything's the end of the world kind of way, but they know this is, and I've said, even a couple weeks ago, I said, hey, no one says that you have to be a Christian, right? No one says that you have to be a Christian. We want you to be a Christian. We are calling you to be a Christian, but no one says, like, points you at a point of gun and says, if you don't do this, we're going to pull the trigger or something. No, you don't have to be a Christian. But if you are a Christian and you are saying that, yes, you will follow Christ, then that comes with a certain amount of responsibility and a certain amount of rules. And you have to follow those rules. And you have to follow those things that God has called us to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's okay if you have struggles. We all have those struggles. But what we need to do is we need to take those struggles and put them at the foot of the cross and ask God to transform us by the renewing of our minds and bear one another's burdens and do all those things together, because we're in it together. And my sin is different than your sin, and your struggle is different than my struggle. But we're going to do this, and we're going to take that sin, we're going to nail it to that cross, and we're going to get cleansed by the Spirit of God. Like, that's the message, and they can feel loved by that, and they can actually feel hope in that. Like I'm not stuck to have to transition. I'm not stuck to do these things. I actually, there is hope at the end of this through Jesus Christ. Give them a message of hope, not catering, because sin is uncomfortable. I was talking to a good friend of mine here, and she has recently been going through a bunch of, like, for lack of a better term, worldview changes, and in a good way. And so she just got done reading a book about Revelation, and it talks a lot about, like, coming out of Babylon, like what that really means. And it was funny because she's like, yeah, it's painful when your worldview is getting stripped away. And it's like, yes, but she's like, but it's also been really good and liberating. I'm like, yes, and that's the thing. That's what we need to be calling people to. Does that mean, like, right when they're like I had a kid the other day, introduced herself within 5 seconds, was like, I'm non-binary. And I was like, okay. And I was just like, well, what's your name? Okay. All right. Then I just moved on. I was like, I didn't even ask about it. But she knew. I sat down, we ate the food together, we hung out together, we engaged in, an actual meaningful conversation, found out this child had a lot of trauma in their life, which tends to go with that sort of thing. And, just loved her, and she came by, like, to our Bible study later on, and it's been kind of like orbiting around the group, and we're slowly trying to rope her in. But you don't need to do it by catering, okay? You don't need to cater. And this whole idea of equivocation of, oh, I have to accept all these things about you and actually conform my worldview around yours in order for you to feel loved and accepted. I deny the premise. You don't need to do that. You can show love while not catering to everyone's little worldview.
With from middle school through high school on their change, and we did the whole thing, the pronouns and choosing a different name, and there was a ceremony, and they started doing hormone shots, and they're off to college now. Well, they're freshmen in college, and they just reached back out to us to say, hey, now that I'm a freshman in college, I realized that wasn't true about me, but I'm going to go back to my old name and my old pronouns. And we're like, okay, well, I'm glad you have a better understanding of who you really are, and I'm so thankful that this student small group leaders didn't draw a hard line in the sand somewhere and say, nah, not here. We used to know you in. But we walked alongside the student and his family because we had no idea where their journey is going to go.
False dichotomy. It's not an either or situation. You can have them in your youth group and love them and be kind and all that to them, and you still have a hard line in the sand, but you can have the hard line in the sand while showing love and grace and doing all those things, and you can navigate that carefully. But what if the church actually had those hard conversations? Like, look, if you're taking these hormone shots and everything, these are going to be damaging to you. These can be irreversible. You can, like, girls who actually take, like, testosterone, for example, and they have the whole voice change where it drops, but because they are not men and they didn't go through puberty the way men do, their voice doesn't sound right. It kind of sounds like they sucked on a hydrogen balloon, but lower. And a lot of that is irreversible. That is an irreversible thing. They have no way to correct the voice back to its normal feminine state. So these are permanent changes. You should not do this. We do not condone this. Why? Because we love you enough to say, don't do it. And if you do go through with it, know this. You could go down that road and you can hit rock bottom and all that. We are here for you. We will love you. We will bring you back to Jesus just the way, because, you're the prodigal son. Well, okay, if you're going to be the prodigal, that's fine. But we cannot say it's okay because, as he said earlier, honor God with your body. It sounds like he's saying to teach them to honor God with their body while also making exceptions for the trans issue, because that particular issue is a hot button topic right now. It's either I have to honor God with my body and we enforce that and we talk about it and we teach it, or we don't. But right now he's not doing that. This is where the whole thing gets crazy. Oh yeah, Adam Cox, he's like, wait, I thought Will was a liberal. LOL. That's the funniest part. And this is where I'm like, remember in all my streams when I've talked about this, when I'm being called a liberal for my atonement theology and stuff, I've been like, I promise you all, I am way more conservative than all of you. I'm the person, I'm like, no, there's a Christian libertarian movement who's like, no, Christians should be, libertarian, like people can transition if they want, they're adults, they can make their own choices. And I'm like, no, that's violating the oath. That's causing harm. Doctors shouldn't even be allowed to do it. That's my whole thing, because it's actually shown, studies have shown continually that no matter what, if people go through all those things anyway, the suicide ideation doesn't change. All those things don't change anyway. So we're just butchering bodies. And because we're not treating the issue isn't their body. The issue is a psychological one. It's a community problem. Usually it could be a chemical imbalance. It could be trauma. It could be a number of other things, but it is not their body. The body's not the problem. All right, moving forward.
The student doesn't know where their journey is headed right now. We're trying to do our best to make sure all these students feel comfortable showing up, because we don't know where this journey is headed. And it's not going to be a nice tied up in a bow end of the story by the time middle school ends, or even by the time Inside Out is over. By the time they're going off to college, it could still be developing. It's going to be somewhere into adulthood that they finally get their identity. And so we're going to love them and care for them for the season that we're walking alongside these students.
Ruh-roh, Raggy. What just happened? No, come back. Oh, that's annoying. Well,
we're going to love them
let's see.
Care for them for the season that we're walking alongside these students.
Well, y'all, sorry. It's now giving me problems. Whatever, you get the idea. Yeah, now it's like, we've encountered a problem. Yeah, I noticed. Thanks. Live streams, man, they're fun for that sort of thing. Yeah, so you guys get God had enough garbage. God watching this is like, and that's enough of that. So anyway, yeah, I'm trying to see if I can, should I pull that up, the rest of that up? Hold on one second, everyone watching. I'm going to see if I can skip ahead if that was just like a corruption issue at that particular moment. Nope, we're just struggling. That's okay. All right. That was kind of the bulk of the video anyway. I retweeted it too. So you go to the church split, or Protestia, who's the ones who leaked the whole thing. Anyway, you guys get the idea. They suddenly cater to the LGBTQ issue being like, oh, but we're now walking, and they frame it as the love, and they frame it as walking alongside and bearing burdens and all that. But really what they're asking is that you compromise your beliefs, that you compromise that what God has said you are, and that you cater to all those things. And that's what a true, good, loving church does. I mean, I'm over here like, man, you may as well throw the rainbow flags in the front then, because you're like, this goes to affirming, because you're basically affirming just by, doing that, by acknowledging that. The next thing I'm expecting is hearing everything's cool with same-sex relationships from Andy Stanley's church. So yeah, right here. Oh, Amber, beautiful statement. Empathy without morals is destructive. I've talked about this many times. Death by empathy is like death by 1,000 cuts. It's the worst way to go. I've seen it. I've seen it in my own family. I know family members who there was one particular young man who was extremely difficult, never listened, always doing just all the immoral things that come with being a young man, women, drinking, whatever, rebellion, violence, all that. And they got him out of every little bit of hot water. And guess what? He ended up being a deadbeat dad. He ended up not being engaged and stuff. And yeah, because of empathy. It was all empathy. Oh, but I love him. Oh, but it's my kid. Oh, but yeah, let him fail. And in these situations, it's like, yeah, but death by empathy is simply death by 1,000 cuts. It's poison. It's not good. That's not what we need. So, Floral from Under a Rock. Hello, Floral. I was just messaging you earlier on Twitter, hopefully to get We need to set up a time. But love God with all you are. Love your neighbor as yourself equals love your neighbor to God. Yeah. So yeah, this whole thing is gross and is bad. And what's crazy about it is when you watch it at first, like I was freaking out. I watched one clip, and it wasn't even the clip about the kid who was 5 years old. It was like the other part about like basically using like pronoun hospitality. And I was like, okay, it sounds like they're taking a Preston Sprinkles approach to this. And it's one I greatly disagree with, but I'm also like not. It's what I greatly disagree with, but it's like, well, depending on how it's framed, I see where people are coming from. They're just with the wrong intentions. However, on the opposite end of it is when I saw the rest of it in context, which is why I wanted the full video, then I was like, oh, I see what they did. They framed it this way, but then now they're framing it that way. And Tabby, what is up? Previous editor of the Church Split, Tabitha Smith. Good to see you preaching it. It's what I do. Fun fact for you. Tabby is a former student of mine when I was the pastor at her home church, the one that she was raised in, and yeah, she knows she's been around it. We've walked. Tabby's walked with people through some really intense things. Because well, when the kids would talk to me, they would talk to Tabby about all their problems, but then Tabby would talk to then we would like, hey, this is what you should say. So, but anyway, all those things to say like. It's really important that we don't confuse our students. Our young people are surrounded by like an evil worldview that's trying to corrupt them. And our churches should be safe havens for Christians. First off, like the church is for Christians. They're for Christians to worship Jesus. And the church is evangelistic, which means, yeah, we're going to have a lot of different people coming in that are in different walks of life. And we should be okay with that. But we should be calling people to be like the church and not asking the church to be like them. That's the big difference here. We can show them that it's better to be like the church because it is better to be like the church. You're going to find that liberty in Jesus Christ, and it's better to repent and do things God's way than to do things your own way. So yeah, exactly. Like death by empathy equals codependency. Did he say their identity issue won't be resolved until they're older, but let's butcher bodies before then? Basically, I mean, it was basically like, yeah, they're going to do all this, but man, a lot of times this gets resolved when they're older. And yes, it does get resolved while they're older, which is why the church should be constantly pushing against the treatments, the hormonal bodily treatments. All those things should be pushed against by the church because we care about our children. We don't want people to bring harm on these little ones, lest a millstone be wrapped around their neck and cast into the sea. Okay. Right here. Did he say their identity issue won't be resolved until they're older? Yes, but then apparently we're supposed to just like walk alongside them with this. Now, I'm glad the person reached out. I'm glad the person changed, and I'm glad all that. That's awesome. That's good stuff. But it shouldn't be. But the church shouldn't have those people who just like sat idly by. Because I wonder if somebody properly came alongside this individual, and loved this individual. I say him. I don't know if it's him or her. I think he said him, but I don't remember. Anyway, this individual. The church properly came alongside and loved this individual. Then they should know also that the church was against it and the church was telling him not to. They pled with him not to. So anyway, that was my church for years. I always knew something was off. Woo, Andy Hill, that is crazy. So we actually have a North Point person here. Let's see here. Amber says, question, if you refuse the pronouns, but the name isn't matching like the pronouns, then what? This would depend. This is tough because it depends if you actually even know what their name was beforehand. So Ben Shapiro actually has a decent point on this where he's like, well, I guess I'll just use your name, but I'm not using your pronouns because I have no other name to go to refer to you as. But I won't use your pronouns. And that's because I just don't think that's healthy. So that I don't know. I think that's probably the best response because if I have no other name to call you by, then I can't call you by anything else. So yeah, but then they'll get mad at you for dead naming them or something. The dude seems to be saying we can't show love to a person without affirming their choices. Exactly. And like anyone who's a bit done, like I've done stupid stuff in my life and I did not need people to affirm my choices. I needed people to tell me, Will, that's a stupid decision. Stop it. So yeah, exactly. Like that's a good thing. Woohoo. Yeah, I see you, Tabby. I can't properly love an addict without accepting their addiction. Yeah, exactly. Like what? My pronouns are adopted and invisible. I'm transparent. You're so dumb. Yeah, and GMW says redefining love, you can justify all kinds of stuff. Exactly. So Will's pronouns are he or he, shout out to Ferris. Stephen Ferris, friend of mine. Yeah, he was saying that my pronouns are he haw because you can figure it out. It's a donkey, y'all. Anyway, so Chris Stockman says, I'm new to this. What do we hate Andy Stanley for this time? Uh, basically, they had leaked footage of their LGBTQ training stuff, and the LGBTQ training stuff said, basically respect their pronouns. They use a family that brought in a 5-year-old who was apparently trans as an example. So anyway, yeah, guys. So that's that. It's been one of those things where I've been on the fence with them for a while because I saw some of the stuff he said, and I was like, "Ooh, you are really close to affirming, bro." Like, you're at that place where I strongly disagree with you and I'm barely okay with you at all. And now it's been shown that you've gone over the edge. I wonder how it even like leaked. Protestia is the one who got the footage. I wonder if somebody from the church got it and found a way to download it and then send it out, because I bet you there's, because like Andy, it was Andy Hills, was that your name in here? Was say that, Andy attended the church, and Andy was saying that, like, always knew that something was off. Well, there could be somebody there who felt the same way, that things were not being forthright. And you can tell, like, the way this, oh, well, we're caring about accepting da 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 da. Oh, out of God with your bodies, no sex before marriage. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, those are good things. But then behind it is the other ideology. So I can see how people get confused by it. So I wonder if some disgruntled member leaked the footage, because I can see that being a thing. So sounds like something I would do, honestly, where I'm like, you know what, I'm leaving this place, and I'm going to leave a nuclear bomb behind me while I send this out so everyone knows that you're a bunch of heretics. So, Joseph Rarick says, when I was in medical school, what I was taught is almost 180 degrees from what is taught today. I think medicine teaching is not scientific, but political and financial. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think there's a lot more things out there, even in the scientific realm, that people say is scientific, but it's not. There is such an agenda behind all of it. And if you don't think there is, you're not paying attention. You have to pay attention to this stuff. It's everywhere. Follow the money, y'all. Follow the money. That's all I'm saying. You follow the money, you'll find all sorts of stuff. And yeah, you're not even wrong there. So yeah, if we co-sign this as Christians, then we are culpable and need to repent. Exactly my whole thing, where I'm like, so if I'm just like okay with this, and I just, quote unquote, walking beside them and creating a safe place by not challenging them, then what happens when that person actually goes through genital mutilation? And they go through that whole thing, and then they're 30 or 40 years old and they have regrets. Or if you've seen What is a Woman by Matt Walsh, there's that one person on there who, like, was a woman, is a woman, and went through the bottom surgery. And now, because of all the infections and everything she experienced, she's like, I'm probably going to die because of my surgeries. And it's like, do you really want to be culpable in that? Do we want to be culpable in that? As a church, do you want to be culpable with that? Or do you want to be the prophets of old who are standing in the tower going, repent, people, repent, turn from this. There's nothing but destruction in that way. There's a whole thing in Ezekiel about the people in the watchtowers. Like, if the person in the watchtower says nothing, then the blood is on his hands. But everyone's blood is on his hands. But if he does say stuff and he speaks up and the city does not listen, then the blood is on their hands. And that is very telling in this situation. Like, we can speak up and be the man on the watchtower. Now, whether they listen is neither here nor there, but we can at least call to repentance and hope to God, literally, that this happens, that they turn from their wicked ways, or that the lies of the devil will be destroyed. Because that's really what it comes down to. A lot of this identity stuff is the lies of the devil that has brought nothing but destruction on our young people. And I'm sick and tired of seeing it. We need a revival, yes, but we need that by properly ministering to these people, by not shaming every little thing, by telling them that they're a bunch of filthy, rotten, worse people, depraved, godless creatures, but also not by saying all of it's okay. We need to shame sin when it's sin, but then create a space where we're open, where we realize that we're all sinners and we're all struggling with this, all sorts of different stuff, and that we are going to turn to the Lord for our transformation and our rebirth. So this is what you can do it. And by the way, young people are hungry for it. It is actually really funny, because the first time I said this in a recent video too, but first time I ever mentioned abortion being wrong, we had a bunch of secular kids in there, and I heard an audible gasp, and it was like the whole thing in small group afterwards. Like, that group went to their small group, and apparently the leaders told me, like, dude, you pulled the pin on a grenade and to talk about abortion with these secular kids there, but they kept coming back. And they have kept coming back. And then one student came up and said, "You're really making me actually think about this now." I'm like, good. Because honestly, I think our culture has become so sensitive and so dishonest, because that's really what it is. Like, when everyone's super sensitive all the time, it becomes a dishonest culture. And because we're such a dishonest culture, I think there's a craving for honesty. And so when you just are honest with them, they are happy to hear it. It does, and of course, there's a difference between honest and being a brute about it. You don't have to be a jerk, but you get my point. So anyway, we we hate Andy Stanley for being a hologram so he can preach live at more than one church at the same time. What is happening with y'all? All right. Yes, the path is narrow, not wide and accommodating. Bingo. So, oh man, I lost my place here. Church split. We should do a collab about what's happening in academia right now. It's so bad, the stuff coming out. Oh, I'm not even surprised. I've seen what academia has said about the same sex stuff with like arsenokoites and other things like and malakoi and all the other crap. It's like, wow. Anyone who knows the first century knows that this is just wrong. And yeah, we definitely do need to do this. Oh, Tabby, now you switch to your YouTube account. Okay. How do you shame the sin for the LGBTQ community if they aren't a Christian? It would mean nothing to them. That is true. That is true, but you still say it's not okay, right? Like, we still go, no, that's shameful behavior. That's degeneracy. Like, I think we should definitely still say it. Let's, like, if a murderer murders, we should say that's a wicked, evil murder. Like, you shouldn't murder. Shameful behavior, degeneracy. But they don't care. Yeah, they don't care about hearing the fact that it's bad and evil and degeneracy. But that doesn't change the truth from being the truth. So that would be my general answer on that. But I think the problem is when people are they appeal to the Bible, like the Bible says, and therefore it's the truth. I think that's one of the biggest problems in that conversation. I think you can tell people it's degeneracy and actually defend it. Like, you have to learn how to defend the theistic worldview, the Christian worldview, and know how to that. When you're saying those things, you better be able to back it up. It's not enough to just say, "Hey, this is sinful and this is wrong. It's not okay." But that's why I typically don't do the whole like yelling street preaching thing, because I don't think that's very beneficial. Because again, you're just Bible thumping, and then you're is rage baiting is all you're really doing. They're not going to listen. I think it's much better to set up a table in our culture and have honest conversations, have people sit down and talk with you, and do proper apologetic work. But yeah, anyway, hope that makes sense. So anyway, all right. So with that said, guys, I think that kind of it wraps up the stream. I got to roll. I got things I got to do. And I'm going to be actually, Tabby, I'll be seeing you this weekend. So I'm excited to see you. I'm heading back home for a little bit, and just to pick up a car and come back. But we're going to try to grab dinner with the friends. So anyway, yeah, coffee shop apologetics. Actually, there is what is it called? Was it Pub Theology? I think it's called Pub Theology. But it has like a little sign you put up at a pub, and like you have people come up and have conversations with you about apologetics and stuff and God and the existence of that. So I think that's really useful. So Will and I are getting coffee and dinner 51 days. Oh yeah. Kat, I don't know if you saw my wife on the stream last night on Biblical Rogues Gallery, but she waved at y'all when she was going up and down the stairs. But anyway, y'all take care. God bless. Hope everyone's doing well. There will be no Wednesday stream this week, and so I'll have another stream next week. But thank you guys for participating in this. I can't believe that this happened. I was just sitting here. This is what happens when you just like, it's like I go to sleep for like 6 hours, y'all, and then we find out Andy Stanley is a heretic apparently. Goodbye, big boy. Peace out, Girl Scout. All right, see you in a while, Crocodile, and all that good stuff. Later, Gator. All right, see you guys. Take care. Oh, and there it is. There's my outro. All right, now take care.